This show contains profanity, advice you should never follow, humor that you might not enjoy. The names have been changed to protect the guilty. Do not try this at home.
Greetings, Yellow Blazers, Blue Blazers, Bill Bryson lovers, Bill Bryson haters, lasagna pizza lovers. My name is Pox Holiday, and sitting to my right is...
Blimey.
And today on the Puss podcast, we're going to talk about foreigners, or as they've been known to be called, foreigners.
Damn foreigners.
Yeah, especially those ones from Germany. All right, be right back. All right. So, yeah, welcome to the Pox and Puss podcast. Sitting to my right is Blimey, but no one else. There's no Puss this time. Puss, unfortunately, her dog injured himself and might have to have some surgery, and so she couldn't make the trip. But we have the one and only Mr. Bordeaux, also known as Blimey, with us. How are things going so far?
Pretty good.
Yeah, we just ate a big old steak for dinner, as promised, like 5 months ago? Say what?
It was good.
Yeah, and it was big. That was a big steak.
Yeah.
That was a big steak. And so, yeah, we had a big day. We went, picked Blimey up at Winding Stairs around 10. And picked him up there, went through Franklin, went into a small town that I lived close to, Silva, had a breakfast, couldn't be beat. Came on back here, showered up, cleaned up, and then we went down to the Nantahala Outdoor Center for the Founders Bridge Day Festival. We got there a couple hours into it. When we walked up, there was I believe it's called phrenology. Oh,
right, yeah.
Now, see, I always thought phrenology was the studying of the size of the head and the shape of the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But this was something, and I'm sure someone's gonna let us know we're wrong, but that was the categorizing of plants. There's a seminar with that going on. I wasn't really certain what that was all about, but look, we didn't come here to talk about my day. We came here to talk about Mr. Bordeaux and how things have been going. So you're at Winding Stair now.
Oh, yep, Winding Stair, pretty sure past the 100-mile point now. So, yeah, doing pretty well.
Yep. And when I pulled up, I was, unfortunately, we got our signals crossed as far as the time. And so I got there, maybe 30 minutes later than I should have. But we kind of had to change plans because of weather, because there was a weird weather day in there where you guys had a lot of ice, and we'll definitely get to that in a minute. But so you had that going on. But I pull up and I'm feeling bad because I'm a few minutes late. And I get up there and there's 5 fucking tables set up end to end of people handing out trail magic. That seems to be the theme this year.
Oh, it was like the biggest setup I've seen so far, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like they literally swung in, kind of like almost brakes screeching, and one woman got straight out, kind of had 2 massive kind of carriers of kind of ice, kind of like cans and that, and
you're drinking
straight out.
You're drinking a Pepsi at 9:45 in the morning when I'm like, whoa, where'd all this come from? That was awesome. But somebody tweeted at us about the sheer amount of trail magic, and I don't know if it's kind of one of those things like with the news, like, did all these things happen before and we just see them more now because they're on the news? Or, were there really this many trail magics happening until Instagram came about? We finally saw all of them, or Twitter. But I tell you, every time I turn around, somebody's talking about trail magic they had happen to them, which is cool. I've had
about 4 instances so far, which I think is quite a lot in a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah. You and I were talking about this when I first saw you. I was like, I do not recall my first trail magic. It definitely wasn't in the South. And I think most of the trail magic that happened to me was, and I've been waiting to say this word in front of you for months. There was a guy who thru-hiked in 1996, and then in 1998 he started doing a lot of trail magic. He had a job that allowed him to, and his name is Fanny Pack.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, good. That's the reaction I wanted. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we find that kind of weird, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just one of those kind of lost in translation things.
But I think that what you guys call it is funny for us, a bum bag.
Oh, right, yeah. Totally. Well, yeah, not many people really wear it around that way, I guess. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, not many people really wear them in America.
No, not, yeah. It's kind of like an 80s thing, I guess.
Yeah. I think I had one in the mid 80s. I think I had one, and it was a Jan Sport. Like those were you had to get the
Classy.
Jan Sport one. Yeah. That's the one you had to have. Another thing that was real big here about that time were Oakley jackets by the Sunglass Company, and it was just like a shitty windbreaker. And it usually was maybe like a 3/4 zip windbreaker, so you had to pull it over your head no matter what, thus knocking off probably the Oakleys you were wearing. But yeah, that was the thermonuclear technology jacket. but yeah, something that has nothing to do with the trip. Okay, so when last we talked to you, your name was Mr. Bordeaux.
Right.
And that was mainly because of your love of wine. And
my surname's like Boardman, and my friends kind of like just cleverly kind of changed it to Bordeaux, like the wine.
Right.
So me and my wife are known as the Bordeaux.
And really early on in us talking online, I saw a picture you had up on Instagram, and it was a picture, I believe, of wine or a bottle or a glass of wine. And you had hashtagged it Cougar Town?
Oh, right, yeah.
Are you a big Cougar Town watcher?
Yeah, me and my wife got into that on, I think it was on Love Film over in the UK.
Oh, okay, yeah, like that their Netflix kind of you were telling us earlier.
Right.
Yeah, and I couldn't even tell you when Cougar Town comes on, but it's kind of one of those. It's I don't know how to describe it, but it's not a very well watched show over here.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I mean, no, and I saw it, and at first I saw that, and I thought this must mean something else. There's no way that there are viewers in the UK watching this show when it seems like nobody watches it here. Sorry, I wasn't trying to talk shit about your favorite show.
No, we just I don't know, just something that me and my wife kind of like chilled out.
Is it good?
But yeah, it's really funny.
Really? Okay. Because we've been talking all day about I'm a big lover of British humor and that kind of thing, and so I felt we had kind of a common bond there as far as the humor thing goes. And I was like, I just remembered the Cougar Town thing, but I had to in all fairness, I have not seen it. So I had to give it a shot. Another thing, while we were eating dinner, I came to realize that half-baked translates to the UK, but on Rick James bitch does not.
No.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of that. I don't know whether that's kind of like...
Do you know who Rick James is?
I don't know.
Super freak, she's super freaky.
See, that rings bells, but again, yeah. I'm terrible at names, so...
No, yeah. No, because I mentioned Dave Chappelle, and I kind of just thought he would translate just because of his world-famous freak out and turning down $50 million. But it did not. And so then I tried to go about by describing who Dave Chappelle was by talking about Rick James, because for a point in time in America, you couldn't walk 10 feet without hearing Rick James. I'm Rick James, bitch. But then it was funny and then I was like, wait, Half-Baked. I was like, oh yeah, I know who that guy is. So we've been playing the Does It Translate game all day.
Right.
So you were Mr. Bordeaux, and then Blimey. How did that come about?
So I got dropped off at North Springs MARTA station in Atlanta, which is where a pickup point was for the hiker hostel in Dahlonega.
Right.
And so I walk up to kind of like the main entrance where people are waiting, and there's two other hikers there. One by the name of Sunshine, and she's got a little dog as well that she's kind of like hiking with. It's already done about 700 miles apparently of the trail, her and the dog. So yeah, these are like the first kind of other hikers I meet, and we get chatting and that, and then this other guy comes along, just gets off the MARTA train, and kind of like unknown to me, he's like, yes, great, a British guy. I kind of like that's like tick one of the boxes for thru-hiking, meet the British guy.
Yeah, done.
And then kind of like I guess he's got like other things that he wants to hear me say, and like literally half an hour into our conversations about kind of like how we're feeling about hiking, I say blimey for something. I can't even remember why I said it.
Right.
But I said it, apparently. It just slips in there sometimes. And again, yeah, he just kind of like openly this time, he was just like, yes, you've just like you've made my hike. You said
check
blimey.
box number 2, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I guess kind of like Sunshine, the woman with the dog, she kind of liked that. And kind of when we got to the hike hostel, she was like, I think that should be your trail name. I think that sounds pretty good for a British guy.
Yeah, that's not a bad one.
Yeah. Yeah, just glad I didn't do something stupid and then like get named that instead.
Yeah, it's much better to have that one out of the way early and not be one of those nasty ones like, what's that one that Puss always talks about? It was like Roach and Scabs or something like that. And it was like 2 hot girls and they're like scabs. And you're like, ooh. But well, that's cool that you wound up with a trail name kind of early on.
There's always time for it to change.
Yeah, you can always fuck up. You can always pull a labradoodoo. What was it?
Oh, the doodles.
The doodles. They're what, 2 like
It's like a couple with 2 kind of like cross-bred dogs.
Yeah, like
part poodle, part something else.
Or Great Dane, it sounds like.
Right, and they become known as the doodles.
The doodles, and then my wife said. So if they mess up, then they can be known as the duties. Like, oh God. So you had your first free refill in Atlanta?
It was
Or Delonico?
No, it was Hiawassee, I guess.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
that's what I remember anyway. I don't know. It was probably Hiawassee, in a little diner that did breakfast, and we kind of like. Once we got the shuttle into Hiawassee, we were like straight on the diner for breakfast. And first refills on coffee. A revelation.
Yeah. And we were pulling into my house here, and I was like, oh, just so you know, it was before you had mentioned that. I said, yeah, enjoy the free refills now. Like once you get up to the Pennsylvania area, then it's like, I really remember it like when I hit New Jersey, it was like, I was looked at like I was crazy if I wanted more drink, you know, and I remember a lot of times they would preface it by saying like, if you want another drink, it's going to cost you. I think because they're just so used to thru-hikers being, spoiled down here. And but it did seem like, and I think I mentioned, it did seem like if you ordered, like iced tea, they were like, yeah, fuck it. We make plenty of it in the back. We've had this for days.
I'll be having iced tea.
Yeah. You rode on the MARTA. Now you're a public transportation guy at home.
Yep, I take the bus to work a lot of the time.
What was the MARTA like? Is it
interesting?
Interesting. Yeah.
I met a few kind of interesting characters here.
Yeah.
Kind of like homeless guy was one of the first, and he was kind of like looking for your change in your pocket, and pretty much everyone was just ignoring him, and he just kind of like starts spouting kind of like rubbish and swearing at everyone. So yeah, that was like a welcome to America.
Yeah, hey.
And then there was like another guy with these placards kind of like spouting something about how I don't know, 9/11 was Israel's fault or something.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, okay.
This guy's walking around with signs about it on the MARTA.
Yeah. This is on a Saturday night. I'm just like,
yeah, why not?
Not got anything better to do.
Yeah, well, that's what we all do on Saturday nights in Atlanta.
Yeah. There were some interesting characters.
Yeah, the first time I rode on the MARTA, I was 19. I went to school about 2 hours away from Atlanta, and we went down there because we knew it was like Atlanta had the Braves, the baseball team, had just won like the pennant. They had just won something, a big game of some kind. And so somebody was like, we're going down there tonight because they have a chance to win. And, if we're down there, it's going to be a big party. And I'm 19 years old and, can't drink legally for another 2 years. And we, so 4 people pile in this car. And like 2 of the people were upperclassmen. I was, a freshman. And they, we take the trip down, drinking the entire way down. The driver wasn't drinking, but everybody else was just drinking and drinking and drinking. And we get down there, park in one of the parking lots, go downstairs to get into the MARTA. One of the guys with us in the 2-hour trip had gotten so drunk that we kind of had to push him through the turnstile, to kind of get him through the thing. We get onto the train, and we're sitting there on the MARTA, sitting there, and this guy comes walking down, and he's like looking left, looking right, looking left, looking right. And then like every once in a while, somebody would kind of give him a nod. He'd go over, and a transaction would take place. And basically the dude was selling crack on the MARTA. And he comes up to us, 4 honky white dudes that are sitting on the train. Like, obviously we are not from Atlanta. like just like the look of us. We went to a school in the mountains in North Carolina, you know, so like the guy looks over at us, and he looks at all 4 of us, and then he just literally like just shakes his head like, nah. And keeps on walking, and like 2 people later he's like, hey, what's up, man? And like sold crack to the guy too, but he just looked at us and literally was like, no, like, no, I'm not. And then it was like, wait a minute, you won't sell crack to me? Fuck that, I'll buy crack. No. That's some bullshit. But yeah, I mean, the MARTA could definitely be interesting. I did later that night, I did wind up drinking legally on my my university ID, which does not have your birth date on it, just has a picture of you. And I remember that I was standing on a stool in a Hooters restaurant in what's called the underground area of Atlanta. And I was standing on a stool singing "Jesus Loves Me, This I Know." I was told.
Nice.
So yeah, you know, that's, you know, I blame the MARTA. Is April Fool's something that's like, is that?
Yeah, we do that. It's kind of over in the UK. It's you have to get your Fool in before midday, otherwise it doesn't count, and it's bad luck or something like that.
Oh, that's not bad.
I don't know whether that's the same over here, but
did anybody play, like, did you encounter any April Fool's jokes on the trail?
There was one. We were on the top of, we were at Vista Campsite, which is like on the top of, I think it might be Powell Mountain or near it anyway.
Okay.
And yeah, on April 1st kind of like fell on that morning basically. And there was like this spot at it where you could go and watch the sunrise. So we all got up early to go get a picture of the sunrise and stuff. Luckily it was a nice day. Really beautiful and that. But yeah, 2 of the older guys that I've been hiking with were down there. And then one of them comes back off and was just like, hey, Jetlags just jumped off the cliff. And they're like, April Fools.
I'm like, oh, shit. Oh, yeah. I was in Davenport Gap, which is just on the other side of the Smokies. Like literally like, you know, feet away from the other side of the Smokies. And the northern side. And I woke up, and the day before I had been like heroically sick. Like I was very sick. And I think I've talked about it on here before where it was like in the Smokies, somebody was sick in a shelter and like threw up in a shelter. I wasn't around it, but we had stayed in the shelter. And, you know, obviously it wasn't cleaned very well. It was just cleaned with water, I'm sure, at that point, you know, out there. So they literally, like, days later, like, close to Hot Springs, somebody had devised a drawing in a journal that was just like a big circle, like a bullseye. And it was like people who had, like, it was like, write your name here if you got the illness in the Smokies or around the Smokies. And there was one guy who had thrown up, had gotten sick, and like they were able to trace it back, like just on paper, you know, in a journal, like all the people that got sick. And then like I think the guy who threw up, I literally think they called him like Puke Boy. Like it was just something very simple like that. So the last day in the Smokies, I mean, I was just sick. I was just a miserable day. And woke up the next morning. I woke up before barf, and I just like sat up, and I was like, ooh, just felt rough, but I felt much better. I mean, I was like, it was a world of difference. And so I'm just sitting there, and then like barf kind of gets up, and like we're the only 2 people in the shelter, and he gets up. I hear him kind of moving around, and I kind of yell over. I'm like, hey man, I think I'm gonna have to get off the trail. And he was just like, you're shitting me. And I was like, yeah, happy April Fools. And without missing a beat, he goes, I know what I'm going to do to you. Like instantly he just says, I know what I'm going to do to you. And I was like, oh, I don't like that. You know, like he instantly knew how he's going to get me back. So the rest of that day, I'm just thinking like, I literally am like hiking and like looking behind me. Like, is he behind a tree? Is he going to try and, scare me? I was like, so like, it was just a tormenting kind of day. And, so that's where you get like right below max patch, and like, you're just a couple miles away from it. So we're hiking along. I ran into him like one other time, and then I walk up to the shelter, and there's a girl that we had met, another guy we kind of knew, and another guy I was just seeing. And so I hike up, and I was like, hey, how's it going? And I'm like looking around, and I don't see Barf anywhere. And so I just sat down at the shelter looking at the journal or something like that. And I was just like, hey, was there a guy here earlier? Did another guy come up? And my friend, this guy describes my friend, describes Barf. I was like, yeah, that's the guy. He's like, yeah, that's his backpack over there. He threw his backpack down. He threw up over there, and then he ran to the privy. And I was like, right. Like, yeah, sure thing. And he just like looks at me like I'm an ass, and he's like, okay. Like, he just didn't say anything else, this guy. And I was like, okay. So then Barf comes walking back up, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Threw up, huh? And he's like, yeah, right over there. And I'm like, okay, sure thing. And I didn't really pay much attention. So then he like goes off and like sets up his tent at like, 5 p.m. Never see him again the rest of the night. And I'm like, yeah. And they're all like, so what's up with your buddy? I'm like, I don't know. I said, I fucked with him this morning. He's getting me back for, April Fools. And they're like, oh, okay. And so then the next morning, I wake up, and Barf's like sitting at the picnic table, and he's literally like cleaning the vomit off of his ground cover for his tent. And I'm like, what's that? He's like, what the hell do you think it is? I was like, is that really vomit? He's like, yeah. I was like, oh my God, dude, I thought you were fucking with me. He's like, no, I threw it. And then like somebody else heard that, and they were like, I wondered why you were like being such an asshole. And I was like, I really thought it was an April Fool's joke. And I was like, because I had been sick. And then, and he's like, no. He was completely just had been throwing up like all night long over there. I was like, oh. So the April Fools was like me not believing April Fools. I wound up feeling worse than if I had fallen for an April Fool's joke.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to experiencing illness on the trail, but I'm sure it's going to come.
Yeah.
I'll embrace it.
Yeah, like you were saying, like even just drinking water in a foreign country would probably be...
Right, yeah. Can be dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. Here, our water's basically, it has sugar in it already. As you can tell by the physiques of most of the people you've seen. So you found... Okay, so earlier we were talking about the fact that, there's a chance... The chance has increased greatly that they might actually make the Walk in the Woods film.
Right.
Richard Linklater, who did Dazed and Confused, Slacker, Waking Life, and a couple of other movies. Be really cool. He does this really cool style that he does where, like in Slacker and Waking Life, people will like pass by one another, and like he will have been focused on one actor who's been talking to somebody else for a while or something like that. And then if someone passes them, all of a sudden the camera goes with that person sometimes. And like he has like Slacker, the entire movie is that. It's just literally like somebody goes walking by and it's like, oh, we're going to follow this guy now. And then they follow that person through their adventure until somebody else passes by him. And so I could see that being a cool way to kind of do the Appalachian Trail, because there are so many. Obviously there's a central story that they'd have to follow, but like it makes, we've said it before, like we rarely ever talk about the miles. We rarely ever talk about like the views. I mean, the views are something, but it's all about the people you meet. And so I could really see that being a major part of, the film. And that's also why I'm trying really hard. I want to be in it. Yeah. Mainly because I love Richard Linklater stuff, and also I think it'd be fun to be in that. So we're going to be pitching that very often on the show from now on. Because obviously
in the movie.
Because obviously Puss and I need attention. So being in a movie would help out with that. I wouldn't wear a paper bag in that. But you quickly prefaced saying that you had read it, but that was not the reason you started hiking or found out about the AT or thought much about it. You read a book by a crazy person, And that's what turned you onto the Appalachian Trail first, right?
Yeah, it was a book about Eustace Conway.
Yep.
Which
that's the one.
I don't think he's very well known in the UK, but a lot of people probably know Elizabeth Gilbert for doing was it Eat, Pray, Love, and she.
Oh, I thought she was on Roseanne. That's Sarah Gilbert. That's Sarah Gilbert. Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah.
But yeah, she wrote The Last American Man, which is based on Eustace Conway's life, basically. And yeah, he kind of lives in the Appalachian Mountains.
He lives really close to a town called Boone, North Carolina.
Right. Yeah. He's got like 1,000 acres or something crazy like that. But yeah, I read her book about him, and yeah, kind of couldn't get the idea out of my head, and thought about it a lot, and kind of bugged my wife a lot about it, and everyone else about it. But
he wound up on a TV show in America.
Right.
I think it's called something like. It was unfortunately it was like a reality show, I believe.
Oh, right.
It was about being like a mountain man. I didn't really know much about it. I mentioned it to another friend after you told me what book you had read like months ago. I looked it up and I kind of made mention of it to a friend of mine because I was like, oh yeah, these people, like we were talking about people who, he was asking us who we might want to have on the show. And I said, well, I just found out about this guy. And he's like, oh, good luck. Like, what do you mean? And like the guy's kind of like, he has a school for outdoor education, that kind of thing. He shut it down recently. So, but no, I had a friend that that went to Appalachian State University, which is in Boone, and he went there for parks and recreation and outdoor recreation stuff. And they would go to his farm and do stuff there. And then I think they were some of the last classes to do it. I think it's kind of been closed up for a couple of years. But no, it sounded really interesting. Like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, well, maybe I can try and figure out a way to get this guy, you know. And then the more I heard, I'm like, I don't think we're going to get this guy.
Does sound like a really interesting character, though.
Yeah, he does. He does. So, getting back to me in the movies. So two of the people that they're talking about for the movie. Now, Robert Redford has wanted to make this movie for a long time. And I think that A Walk in the Woods. He's wanted to make that movie for a while. And originally he wanted his friend Paul Newman to play Katz. And from what I understand, it was going to be really hard for Paul Newman to gain the weight to play Katz. And so now they're talking about Nick Nolte. Are you familiar with Nick Nolte?
Yep.
Okay, sure. But cool. Yeah. So Nick Nolte, I'm pretty sure he's internationally known. But so a lot of people know him from The Prince of Tides, which is a pretty big film here in America. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah, I have, but I can't recall many scenes, I don't think.
yeah. I mean, it's like, I think, isn't he and Barbara Streisand? Isn't that who it is? I think it's Barbara Streisand is one of the other people in Prince of Tides.
So, yeah.
But, well, when I was younger, I actually did a little bit of acting. I did a little bit of acting when I was younger. And so they wanted, a casting call went out for a movie. And it turned out it was Prince of Tides. And my parents had both read the books, but I never had, obviously. I was very young at the time. And so I made it through several rounds of casting to play the young Nick Nolte in The Prince of Tides. And so it came down to me and like 3 other dudes. And I was the first one, or it came down to like me and 4 people or something like that. But I was the first one to go out of that group of 5. And it had gotten down to like physical traits at that point kind of thing, and height, I believe was one of the things. And so from then on, I was just like, I'm not going to watch that movie. I'm never going to watch that movie. That's fucked up. I didn't get that part. I don't even want to see what I could have done. I don't even want to see. And so years later, I was working with this guy who was from St. John. Yeah, I think it's St. John in the Caribbean, and he had this great accent. It was like a French / islandish kind of thing / Jamaicanish, but he was like, he smoked cigarettes, and he had accidentally cut off 2 of his fingers on that same hand that he smoked cigarettes with, but like they had been sewn back on, but they were kind of like cocked up in the air. So when he smoked his cigarettes, it was really weird. So one day we did deliveries together, and And I was telling him, like, yeah, I made it one of the final rounds of this. And I was like, he was like, have you seen that movie? And I was like, no, man, I never wanted to see it. And he was like, you would have played the young Nick Nolte. And I'm like, yeah, I'm making him German now all of a sudden. But I can't do his accent. But he's like, you were going to play the young Nick Nolte? And I was like, yeah. He's like, and you've never seen that movie? I'm like, no. He's like, you would have been raped. And I was like, what? He's like, that's the whole point of it. He's like, that's the whole point of it, is Nick Nolte's character when he's younger gets raped. And I was like, that wasn't part of the casting call that I don't remember having to read that part. And so I've always felt good. Like, okay, I've actually kind of thought about watching it. And then I did do something douchey. I looked the kid up, and I don't think he did anything else I checked out his IMDb. I don't think he did anything else.
Dodged a bullet.
Exactly. So now if I could be the young Cats, of course I'm probably the same age that Cats was in the book. How old were they in that?
I don't know. I think, were they not like
in their 40s, 50s?
I think they might have been, early
a little
40s,
older,
maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, because I don't recall. I read that book when I got back from the trail in 1998, so I still have no clue.
I have 4 copies.
Yeah, that's right. You just kept getting them.
Oh, you did the Appalachian Trail? I've got something for you. Oh, thanks. Go in the pile.
And by the way, I like your pronunciation of that. It just makes sense. Appalachian. What'd you say? Appalachian?
I say a bit of both. Kind of like at home when I was talking about it, it was always be Appalachian, but kind of more I've heard about it from American people. It's
Appalachian.
Definitely Appalachian, right?
Yeah. That changes at the Mason-Dixon line too.
Right.
Then it becomes Appalachian.
Yeah.
And Appalachian. All right, so we did have one phone call this week, and it's funny. It was a nice surprise, actually. I saw it come in, and I didn't recognize the number or the area coding like that, and I saw it come in. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to listen to that. And I've just had such a hectic week that I didn't have a chance to listen to it until like 5 minutes before I started setting all the equipment up. So it was like, oh, wow, we have a phone call. That's pretty cool. And it's a good one. Let's see here.
Hey, Fox and Puss. It's your neighborhood-friendly Peter Coffinail. Just calling. Been spending the last few weeks or whatever dreaming about the Appalachian Trail and thinking about my time out there. And, I was listening to you guys' podcast, and I kept thinking to myself, there's a lot more to life than just hiking the Appalachian Trail. And then I woke up, and I was like, that's wrong. It is all of it is life. But something like for a lot of us guys, and gals that have are 2,000 milers or whatever, we think back on all those days like, man, I wish I was still back on the trail and this and that. And I got to thinking, too, about, being on the trail and then coming home and thinking of all those things that I missed and then some of the things that I was glad to have missed. And 2 of those were, one was that Call Me Maybe. Totally missed it. Thank God. My boss made a joke about that at work the other day and just didn't hit home. So, and then the other thing was the Gangnam Style. I totally missed out on that one too. And I think that, in all honesty, if I had been cruising around the woods for 4 months or whatever, I definitely would have been stuck at here in Chicago listening to every other freaking person's take on Call Me Maybe. So anyway, I think you guys are still doing great work, and I hope to God you guys get out there and spend some time with some hikers, maybe make it to trail days or whatever, and fucking hike your own hike. All right, peace.
Definitely trying to get the trail days. We definitely want to try and set something up there. Peter Coffinail, of course, the first Instagram follower at Photoidol, Fotoidol. A lot of great pictures. He recently just finished working on a deck. So he put that up there. But that he brings up something because there was a lot of stuff that I did miss while I was out. And, I missed, before dinner, we were watching Saturday Night Live, something, you hadn't seen very much of. One of the guys that was a very long time actor on there, Phil Hartman, he was shot and killed while I was on the trail. And I found out like 2 months later, like, what? Phil Hartman died? And he was like the nicest guy, and his wife shot and killed him, and it was like, well, that's crazy. And I missed Michael Jordan's last championship, like the final shot, I didn't get to see that kind of stuff, but yeah, I could totally see missing Gangnam Style And call me maybe. I could completely see that. But like, the other thing is that also means you didn't get to see the Olympics.
Right.
I mean, have you missed anything yet that you know of? I mean,
apart from the obvious, I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe kind of like some of the home cooked food that I do.
Yeah.
Or that my family do. That's probably one of the biggest. Maybe.
It's nice that you guys can Skype. That was nice.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's been that's been pretty good because I wasn't too sure how it would go, kind of like contacting home. But yeah, Skype's definitely been a bonus.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi is kind of like a bit sketchy around places. Kind of like in the book, kind of like they say they got Wi-Fi, but you get there and they're like, oh well, actually no, we don't.
Yeah, it's just for the office use.
Yeah. But no, yeah. No, just the obvious at the moment. I haven't been gone long enough, I don't think, to miss any kind of like TV programs or anything. I don't really watch a lot of TV. It's usually just sort of like Love Film on Netflix and like stuff online. But
yeah, there really hasn't been much. I mean, and as far as over here goes, I remember from when I was hiking that March Madness, the NCAA basketball tournament, was a big thing that was going on, but I don't think that my team was in there in 1998, so I wasn't really concerned with it, and I just kind of compartmentalized that, and it was like, I remember getting to Hiawassee and going, oh shit, that's right, there's basketball games on, and oh, you were telling me about a pickup truck. That's right. The roving pickup truck. Please alert the people, let them know.
Oh yeah, 2 pickups. There's 2 stories of the pickup, but yeah, I guess there's this guy in a red pickup with North Carolina plates. It's a Ford Ranger apparently,
right?
And he kind of like picks up hikers at kind of road gaps. Says like, oh yeah, I'll take you into town for $10, and takes them into the woods somewhere, kind of like remote, and says, right, that's $100, or I'm going to dump you right here. So yeah,
crazy.
We've been warned a lot about him. Kind of, there's been notices like stamped to trees, and at every place you stop, people are like, oh yeah, watch out for the red pickup. So every time you see a red pickup, you're like, oh.
And then you had one, was it last night or 2 nights ago?
Yeah, last night, because I'd done like a 20-mile day to catch up for like a pickup with you, and we stopped at Rock Gap, I think it is. And the minute I say that, people are like, oh, right, okay, how did that go? I was like, okay, did I do something wrong? Yeah, so we'd kind of like, I'd pushed on with these guys that I'd met, and I'd hiked with them like the first couple of days, and then I hadn't seen them, but I'd done about 13 miles to the top of Albert Mountain with the lookout. And then I met up with these guys, and they were going on until Rock Gap Shelter. So I was like, I might as well crack on, and then I can catch up the miles, and I won't have so much to hike in the morning to meet the pickup. So yeah, we got into this Rock Gap Shelter, and we kind of got settled. There wasn't really anywhere to set a tent up, but I ended up tenting like under the bear cables, which were kind of useless. It's like the only flat spot, but I didn't really fancy kind of going in the shelter, so tent it was. And we started cooking our dinner, and then like the road runs kind of like at the bottom of the hill from where the shelter is. The road runs right along the bottom of there, and yeah, so we like started cooking our dinner, and this pickup truck just kind of like cruises along slowly and then stops kind of like in the middle of this kind of like road that looks right up at the shelter, and he just kind of like looks up at us, and I'm kind of like looking at these 2 other guys, and they're kind of like looking down at the truck as well, and I'm like, yeah, okay, this is a bit weird. And I'm like, is this weird, guys? And they're like, yeah, this is a bit weird. I'm like, should we move on? And they're like, probably, but it's kind of like already getting dark by then, so we ended up staying, and it was all right. But that was probably my first kind of like, oh shit, there's some like strange people out there.
Yeah, it's insane. There's a shelter in, I think it's there's a point in time when you're kind of like, you're New Jersey or New York, New Jersey, New York. It's kind of like North Carolina, Tennessee for a little bit there. You have no idea, are we in New Jersey or New York right now? I don't know. And so there was this place, I think we talked about before, there was a really cool restaurant we ate at. And then there were like 6 of us, 6 or 7, no, it was like 8 of us packed in, and just like threw all of our packs into the back of somebody's car. And they're like, oh yeah, there's the road's right by the shelter up there. We can get up there, no problem. So we all just kind of slack packed up to the top of this mountain. It had a fire tower on top of it as well, but it was getting late. And we all pack into this shelter. and like all of us were friends, so we're all just like, oh, we hadn't been around each other in forever, and so a bunch of people were just in there chit chatting, talking, and then there was a tent out back, like set up behind the shelter, and we had no clue who it was, and sure enough, this pickup truck pulls up, and everybody like they see and they're like, oh, and they our friends who had their car there looked down and were like, no, they kept on going. And then, like, sure enough, like 5 minutes later, this guy walks up, bam, hits everybody in the face with a flashlight. Like, how are y'all doing tonight? And we're like, fine. Who the fuck are you? And it was like a ranger or something like that. It was like somebody that worked for the state of New York or New Jersey. And they're like, whose car is that down there? And like, oh, it's theirs. And went out chit chatting and all this stuff. And then, like, there was no other car down there, and there was nobody in that tent. Because the guy's like, whose tent is this back? Is this one of y'all's tent? And I'm like, no, we're all camping in here tonight. And he goes back and he like, hello. There's like nobody in the tent. No other cars down there. It was just kind of like the rest of the night. We're all like, is this person coming back? Are they gone? What happened to them? And it's like, are they in there and just not able to answer? So he just like, well, you know what? I'm just going to go to sleep now.
Right.
Not much I can do. Just fuck it. I'm going to sleep.
I could not do that last night though. When after that incident with the truck, I was just like, I'm still getting used to sleeping out in the woods anyway with all the different noises. But yeah, it kind of did unnerve me a bit. It wasn't anything major, I know, but kind of like it kind of brought it back home. Like, yeah, I'm not really completely safe out in the woods yet.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah, you're not out of the woods yet. Let me go ahead and get some of the cliche questions out of the way.
Yeah, cool.
What's the biggest difference you've noticed in general between the UK and here?
Biggest difference?
Yeah. I know that's a very broad question, not a very good. That's why I'm a journalist. Any? I guess for one thing, for us here, the British are known for being kind of a polite people, and you've been nothing but polite. And in the South, we're known for being polite.
Right.
There's polite, and then there's that step over where they're just so Southern, they're just racist. But, we're just polite in here. It does get less polite as you go north. I think everybody would admit to that.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
There's a guy from New York, and he actually said kind of like, I'm shocked at how polite people are down here.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm used to everyone just hating each other.
Yeah.
And and I'm not too sure how to take people because everyone's so nice down there. I was like, are they being real, or
that's always the number one thing.
Didn't know how to take it.
People don't realize that we're being genuine. It's like, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, you doing all right? Hi, how are you? And it's just like you just get these looks of like, what do you want? Like, what's your end game, buddy? Yeah, like people just don't trust it. But it's just like, we were like, I know from living down here, just kind of raised, yes, ma'am, no, thank you, yes, please, no, sir, yes, sir, all that kind of stuff. And not saying that people aren't taught respect in other places, but it's just one of those things that's just like beat into you as a child. And so, yeah, but then you meet people and they're just like, well, I don't understand this. I don't trust this fucker.
I've welcomed it. I've had nothing but kindness so far on the trail. So yeah, that's been welcoming. Definitely.
I'm sure if you had tried, you probably could have bought crack on the MARTA.
Probably.
Nice enough guy. Yeah, it's funny because right now, people that listen know that, last weekend I was moving from Raleigh to the mountains of North Carolina, and I was stressed to no end last week when we were recording our last show. And, and Puss was sick as she could be, chock full of cold medication. And it definitely added something. I don't know what it is. But the other thing we've realized is that we just don't do shows sober very well. So, but no, last week was one of my favorites. But so in the process of moving up here, we were basically moving a full house into our house that already has stuff to live in. So I'm riding home from work yesterday evening. And let's see. Oh, the other thing is that the locks on my car stopped working, and I told you that I was locked out of my car because I had to leave my doors unlocked, and then someone, being nice in the South, they were like, "That poor man, his doors are unlocked. I'm gonna go lock those doors for him." So yeah, I had to call AAA and get them to come get them to break back into my car. And the guy's like, "Where's the key? I don't see it in there." And I'm like, "It's right here." I'm like, "How many times has this happened?" And he's like, "Actually, more times than you think." Like, "Oh, okay." But so I'm doing a mental inventory as I'm driving home last night. I said, "All right, I have duct tape over my door locks so nobody will lock my doors and lock me out of my own car. I have a house that's stacked to my chest full of stuff. And there's like no room to move in the house because we have so much crap." And it was like, I have 2 insane dogs. I work a second shift job, so I get off at midnight. I'm just as tired as I can be. And I was just like, we're gonna look absolutely insane to this dude. Not only are you meeting me for the first time, but I'm making an impression for America for you here, and you're going to base all your judgments on Americans from here on out based on this crazy house. And I apologize, America. But you did nothing but reassure us that we weren't crazy, because we had a big long discussion about how the other one thought the other one might murder them.
Oh yeah.
No, it's the internet, and now I expected Mr. Bordeaux or Blimey to show up as a gigantic Samoan Mormon football player. But we definitely thought we were going to be catfished. But not
something you do every day, but it's turned out all right.
Yeah,
luckily we're both alive.
Yeah, exactly. So far, so good. No, it was kind of funny because it was just kind of like and I can understand. I mean, I'm sure that if my family knew I was going to a foreign country and I had been talking to this guy online and I was going to stay at his house, I'm pretty sure some questions would arise. But it's so weird how many of those types of risks you take on the AT. And again, as always, you should never follow any suggestions we ever have on here. But it is amazing how many risks you take. And like like we were talking with one of the guys at NOC today, and he was talking about, he's like, "Oh, that's why I never." You told the story about the shelter and the pickup truck. He's like, "Oh, that's why I never camp any less than the minimum of a mile away from a road." And I'm like, how many times did I camp where I could count the headlights going by? 'Cause it was like, this is where it's happening today. I'm tired now. It's happening. Might be piss poor planning on my part, but this is where I'm going to stop. And a lot of times I look back on that and go, I don't know if you've had this yet, but I bet you'll have it at one point in time when you wake up, you're not certain why you woke up. And then you're like, I woke up for a reason. And then you hear something stomping or walking around out there, and you just think to yourself, do I move? Like, do I, because my tent, I couldn't see out without unzipping several, things at the time. And it's like, do I unzip or do I just stay still? If I unzip, is it going to freak this thing out? And is it going to come at me? Does it even see me over here? It has to smell me. And you're just like, it's just that kind of like putting your covers over your head, like the monster won't see me. The monster won't see me.
But then all you can hear is like your heartbeat going, right? And that kind of like drowns out any other sounds. So you're like, am I actually hearing something? Or it's like, is that actually just my heartbeat?
Yeah. Oh God, I had that happen, and I'm waiting at this. I'm saving the story for a rainy day, but I had that happen right after I had gone through a town and drank I think I drank 3 Mountain Dews or something like that. Something with a good amount of caffeine, just enough to make you really want to pee. Just enough diuretic to make you really want to go. And I woke up at 2:00 in the morning with that feeling of something just woke me up. Oh God, I've really got to piss. And then what woke me up just kept walking closer and closer and closer and closer until it was right there, and I could hear it, and it was making a noise, and it was like, oh God, I've got to piss so bad. And I was stuck in my tent for 3 hours. Nice. I was stuck in my tent for 3 hours and couldn't see. And at that point, I didn't have my fly on, but it was still dark, and I couldn't see out. But I could hear it walking around out there. But it was just like, oh God.
It's like one of the worst combinations in life. My
bladder is going to explode. You're like, oh God, please just go away. But let's see. so far you've seen what animals you ran down earlier today?
I've seen squirrels. Yay!
Yes.
Chipmunks, which I hadn't seen before, so that's pretty cool. Kind of like shooting around, making funny little noises. Herd owls, which last night kind of sounded like they were saying "help," which is a bit creepy, along with the pickup story. But yeah, that's about it so far. So I kind of think I've seen some signs of bears, but I can't be sure. And
then you saw your first North American deer today.
Yeah.
While we were driving down the road,
right.
And it was running in the opposite lane, and it was like trying to make a left. It was waiting for us. It was like, come on, go on by. And I was like, hey, there's a deer.
Tick.
Done. Heard the word blimey. Tick. Met the British guy. Saw the deer. I saw 3 bear on the trail. One like 2 feet away from me, and then the other 2. I saw the butt of a bear running up a hill. I saw another one just crossing a road, I believe. I don't even remember the third one now, but I know there's a third. But my favorite was the one that I saw its butt. Like I just heard this rock tumbling behind me. I look back over my shoulder, and there's like this bear trying to run up like a little like rocks, like, the size of a soccer or a basketball, just a hill made of nothing but those rocks. And it's like trying to run. It was like a cartoon character. Like every step it would take, it would just like slide down 2 steps, and rocks are just tumbling down, and its butt's just like, and all I can see is its butt, and it's just like falling, going back up, falling, going back up, and it finally works its way up. But there's a spot in New York. Now that I remember, and now I recall this, there's a spot in New York that I can't remember what it was called, but it's just like this gigantic sinkhole. And it's like a very steep hike down into it. And then it's like a crater. It's just flat all the way across. And then like there at the other end, there's just like this really steep, straight up kind of thing. And I think there was a shelter right before, as you're heading north, right before you get to the sinkhole thing. It's like literally like 100 feet away. And so we got our packs on, like just finished eating lunch or something like that. And right as we get there, this guy, like a dad with his daughter and maybe like his son and his daughter's friend, their ages are around like 8, 10, something like that. And then the youngest boy, he's like 5 or something like that. They were walking across this crater. They're walking across, and the dad like heard something behind them, and it was a bear, and he had like all their lunch in the backpack. And so he just like said he was just walking, just unclipped the sternum strap and just boom, just dropped it off his back. And they just kept walking. He was like, just keep walking. And he's like, yeah, the bear, messed with my back. And we're just kind of like, yep. And then he takes his pack off, and he takes it off, and he's like, he went back and grabbed it, obviously, once the bear had left. And then he came back, and he takes it off, and right in front of us, and we look, and there is just this huge, like, rip down the back of it, and like some food stuff had been messed up inside of it. But it was like him saying this, like when you have 2 6-7-year-old girls telling you they saw a bear, you're like, yeah. And the little boy, he's just kind of wide-eyed. But then when you see this gigantic claw mark through this guy's backpack, it's like, oh shit, I gotta walk across this now. I'm just like, all right,
let's do this.
Yeah, you walk in front, I'll walk behind. We'll just keep a lookout on all sides. Never saw him, but that, like, from then on, I was just like, that. I'm taking this shit to heart. Like when somebody says that, I had stopped using my food bag as a pillow long ago. But I
heard something from a guy actually when I was waiting for you this morning, and he was like, this was a guy called Roadside. He hiked last year apparently.
Was he the guy with the big beard?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was a huge beard. That was amazing.
That was a big beard, yeah. But he said apparently kind of like the mama bear, as it were,
right,
kind of sends in the cubs if they're going to do something like go into a tent for food or something. I don't know whether that's true or not, but sounds interesting.
Yeah, there's all kinds of weird stuff like that. Like, they say, like I said, I saw a bear 2 feet in front of me. It literally ran across, and it was a cub. And so I told that story for years, and and I still do, obviously. But like for me, the first thing that I did, it went from my left to right across the trail, and then ran like straight down a hill. Like it was really steep on my right, and I mean it just went straight down this hill. And so my first thing was look left because the mama bear. I don't want to be between the mama and the cub. And so two things. One, I had someone tell me one time, I told that story at the outfitter I worked at. There's a good old boy. He's like, that's bullshit. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, that's bullshit. That didn't happen to you. I'm like, why did that not happen to me? He's like, because bears can't run downhill. Like, what? He's like, their ass is way more than their heads. And so they get going too fast. They can go down a gradual hill, but they can't go like down a real steep hill because they will literally go ass over their head. And I was like, well, I'm not lying to you, sir. This really did happen to me. I have no clue what happened to the bear once he went off the side of the hill. He disappeared down into the trees. For all I know, he could have gone ass over his head there. But but that happened. He's like, nah, the guy didn't believe it. And then I found out from people, they also said that, the mama bear will tend to be the first one to run because they're trying to train the cub. Like, hey, there's no need to stick around with these people. They shoot us, It's
Right.
like, hey, look, go out of here, get out of here. And so what I think happened is that Barf went by first, probably scared the mom, and then the cub panicked, and then when it saw me, it took off. But I mean that thing was still like, it was still heavy. It was a big bitch. Like when it went by, I was like, like if it had hit me, like if it had just, waited a few seconds and then just like plowed right into me, I would have gone, my ass would have gone over my head right down the damn hill. That would have definitely happened. Oh, so bears, God knows what the hell they do.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows why they do what they do.
There's a couple this morning, again, waiting this morning, and they hadn't, I was talking to them and they hadn't hung a bag yet. They were like, oh, so where can I get hold of a bear bag? I was just like, what, you mean you haven't been hanging already?
Yeah.
It's just like, wow.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it just makes sense.
Yeah,
It just makes sense. Now I did love it when I get to a shelter and they had like the little squirrel ones. They still have those, like they hang them at the end of the shelter. Sometimes you'll see them.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just like a one to keep the chipmunks off mainly. Has the tuna fish can upside down, that kind of thing. Yeah, you get there, you're like, oh yeah, this is where I'm putting my food tonight. Putting it right at the foot of the shelter where I can bring in. That was always my thing. I always thought, wait a minute, as opposed to hanging my bear bag.
It's like a full buffet for the bear.
They get there, they're like, all right, here's the horse duvets. The horse duvers. And then I'm going to start with toes. Hordivores, excuse me. So you are hiking for a charity as well.
Yep.
What is that charity for?
It's the Rainbow Trust Children's Charity. And they support families with children that have terminally sick kids.
Okay.
And they kind of provide support for they kind of like provide a support worker for the family, and they help the family right through the kind of like that time in their lives.
Yeah.
And afterwards, they kind of like give the support kind of like continually as long as they need it. So yeah.
And how can people find out more and donate?
You can either go straight to the Rainbow Trust Children's Charity.org site, or you can go to my giving site, which is virginmoneygiving.com/Thru-Hiker. And you can donate to my kind of like charity fund there.
Nice.
So yeah, thank you very much.
Oh yeah, no problem. No problem. So you've been here for what, like 2 weeks now?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you still dream in British?
Dream in British.
Sorry.
You know what? I don't know. I haven't dreamt for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm talking like for about like a year now. I haven't been able to remember my dreams.
Really?
I've kind of like known that I've dreamt.
Yeah.
But can't recall what that dream was about really. So yeah, that's I'm kind of still going through that. I don't know whether kind of like somewhere on the trail I start kind of having crazy trail dreams, but Yeah.
There's a couple of crazy dreams that seem to always happen. I know for me, altitude is one part. The higher up I get, the more likely I am to have a crazy dream. And also dehydration. That's another one where you're kind of like if you're at 6,000 feet and you're dehydrated, but you'll have some pretty crazy ones. Then it's like NyQuil. You're familiar with NyQuil, that kind of stuff. Like NyQuil nightmare dreams, like those kind of things. You're like, oh God, what happened? Well, there was a monkey. And I remember when I got to Gorham, New Hampshire. That's where I had Giardia. I'd been sick for days leading up to that. And I mean, I was just wiped out. Like I was really dehydrated, really sick. Probably actually should have stayed in the hospital for a day kind of thing, but just didn't think about it. It was like, I just need some Flagyl to stop pooping constantly and throwing up. And people were like, oh yeah. But like, it was really wore on me. Like I probably should have just had a day of fluids, an outpatient thing would have been fine. But so instead, I stayed in this hiker hostel in town, and at the time, it was a big time here because Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire were going for the home run contest. Like they were going for the race to have the most home runs in a year. Again, shit I wouldn't care about, but plop me down in front of a TV after I've been on the trail for 5 months. And it was like, oh, I could watch this, and especially if I'm dehydrated and just drinking Gatorade all the time, and that's it. So in that time, Barf was still hanging in there with me, and he winds up getting sick as hell. Like he winds up getting some flu or something like that. And while he was there, he realized that that dehydration and NyQuil was a big trigger for him because he just even to this day, I don't think the dude takes NyQuil because he just went into this like screaming fit one morning, like like just like I can't remember what, because it was like really early and I was in the same room, and it was like I woke up and it was like there were like 6 single beds in this one room, and it was just kind of like somebody in this room is screaming. And I was like, wait, where am I? Still dehydrated. It was like, like, oh, Barf, chill. huh? And so, yeah, sorry. It's just a really bad story.
I've heard of a hiker, actually, that has night terrors.
Oh.
And it kind of has, like, the whole camp kind of, like, worried, kind of like, what the hell is going on?
and a lot of times, like, the more stressful... Because I had a kid that I took out in the woods with a group of like 8 one time. He was like, I have night terrors. And it was like, okay. And then one day we went up like 13,000 feet and came back down to like 8,000 and up to 10 and back down to 7. We had a really stressful day, like 20 plus miles, and the biggest day we had on the entire trip. And we had a really great dinner. We're camped out in the middle of this beautiful field where everything around us is 12 or 13,000 feet. It's a beautiful, beautiful field. And like everybody, like we didn't have to, we're just sleeping in a meadow, like just sleeping in our sleeping bags, didn't have to set up tents, anything like that. And I wake up at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to just bloody murder. Just, and we hadn't been around this group the entire time. And so I'm like, what? And me and the other instructor were like, what's going on? And you just heard the other guys go, Greg, shut up. Because they had been around him and he had a few stressful times. I guess he had screamed before with them. Yeah. And it was like, but like the two of us are up like, oh, what the fuck was that? And they're like, Greg, just shut up. Everybody else goes right back to bed, but I don't really fall asleep. I don't think the rest of the night, but he told me, he's like, nah, it's really when I have a bad day. And so I can imagine there's probably a lot of bad days on the AT as far as stressful or just more like stressful, physically stressful. Mm. So yeah, God, I slept around a guy one time. I'm going to rephrase that.
Yeah, it totally went through my head.
So in the 100-mile wilderness.
I slept around.
I slept around a guy. So in the 100-mile wilderness, I was in a shelter, and I probably told this one, but it was the first day I met Flutterby, and the only time I hung out with Flutterby on the trail. And there was a guy in the shelter who snored like one of the Three Stooges. He literally snored. And I started laughing because I was like, "There's no like." I just started laughing. I was like, "No, no." And people are like, "No, seriously, that's how that dude snores." So that's what I think. I think the number one piece of gear that I always recommend is earplugs.
Yeah.
Do you carry some?
Yeah, I actually kind of like my first night over here. No, sorry, my second night over here in the hike hostel. There was this guy there, and he was like, "So have you got earplugs?" And I was like, no. He was like, "You might need these." And like handed me his own earplugs because he's like this crazy snorer.
Yeah.
Like shaking window kind of loud.
Oh.
So yeah, one of my second night was, even with the earplugs, it was kind of like I could still hear it. And then below me also, there was this guy that sleep talked.
Oh.
But it wasn't just talking. It started off kind of like whispering. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
am I hearing this? And I was just like, okay, yeah, he's definitely sleep talking. Sleep talking. And this is another guy other than the snorer.
Yeah.
And then he starts like talking. And just like talking about this guy called Ray or something. I don't know what it was about. I didn't really work it out. Like, oh, Ray, yeah, what a Ray. So it started off whispering, then he's talking, and then he starts shouting. It's like, yeah, I see you, Ray. And just like, whoa there. And then he finished it with singing. And he just like singing a little tune to himself. So I was just like, yeah, got a full scale of like sleep talk.
Now my wife she does that same sleep talking thing, but it does start off like, and all of hers are fights.
Right.
Like every time if she's ever talking in her sleep, it's always a fight, and it's never with me, which I'm always like, "Were you fighting with me?" She's like, "No." And most of the time it's somebody that she played soccer with in high school, middle school. And but she'll start off, she's like, "You do not talk to me like that. I will that. No, fuck that. I will that." And they're all this like short, breathy little and then and eventually we'll get to kind of like, "I told you, no, you stay on that, bitch. Don't you back off of that." And and then it's like, "Fuck yeah!" She's like yelling at the end of it, and it's like, "All right, baby, that's okay. It's got to stop." But like that breathy, whispery, it's so creepy because it's like it to me it sounds like someone's talking to me from the other side.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
White noise.
Yeah, it's like, oh, what is that? Oh god.
Half asleep, not really what you want to hear.
Hey. Fuck you. Guess she heard me.
Busted.
I did not start using Twitter until we did this podcast. I had never used it before.
When I started looking into, like, seriously looking into the trail, I was like, that's when I got into kind of like all the Twitter and Instagram and stuff. And then I just literally, probably the first day when I typed in Appalachian Trail, you guys popped up.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really,
and that's
really
how you found us?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just not the right time. But it's funny, you'll notice as people start to kind of, like, you can tell when somebody's ready to go. It's really interesting because they start talking shit about the AT. They're like, "Oh, this stupid fucking thing, all these fucking people out here," and they start just talking shit about the trail, and you're like, "See ya." Like, like I remember one time, like, turning to barf and being like, "I don't know, you give it a week, if 2 weeks tops." And it's like, 1-2 weeks tops, and then sure enough, the guy drops off 8 days later, and you're like, "Yeah, I knew it." I bet when they get to the next town, that's it for them, and that happens quite a bit. So I think some people can't take the monotony of it, and then I think the home life thing too.
Yeah,
but I got lucky. I didn't really have much to worry about going home. I mean, I didn't have something to go home to, but like all I had to go home to was more college, which I wound up taking another 15 years to complete. But yeah, it's just like, you goof off as you go. You have a good time. You see America.
Yep.
I mean, I think I think it's great when older people do it, but I think it's great for young people. It's like a Rumspringa,
Right.
It's like I think it's a great year between high school and college thing, or maybe after you've been in college a little bit, maybe like when you're 21, so you can drink. But like it's just I met people along the way that had interesting jobs, that lived in interesting places, and it's like, how often living in North Carolina am I going to meet someone from, Indiana, Iowa, in the middle of the country that I have nothing in common with, and then you meet them and they're like, oh, I tie flies for a living for LL Bean 6 months out of the year, and then I hike the rest of the time. You're like, you can do that? Wait a minute, you can have these types of jobs? And so yeah, it was really interesting meeting. I do feel like I met more foreign people on the PCT though. Like, I don't know if it's just the California thing.
Tracks more, maybe.
Yeah, just more people want to go to California, but I would think the AT would be a pretty, like, here, let's get one for us. So how many people back home actually know what the Appalachian Trail is?
Right, so, yeah, kind of like when I mentioned it, people would perhaps, like some people had perhaps heard of the mountain range, but not necessarily that there was a trail kind of leading all the way north, basically. So yeah, kind of when I mentioned it, people were like, oh, all right, okay. Or kind of like the obvious, they'd read Bill Bryson's book.
Right.
Because Bill Bryson's quite a big author over there. But yeah, most of them really didn't know what it was, didn't realise quite how far the trail went. So yeah, kind of like, I think my dad knew one other guy that he works with that had done, I think, a section of it.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the only person that I kind of had some connection to through my dad that had actually done a bit of it. Everyone else kind of like, never really knew it was a trail, never really heard a lot about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, they haven't heard of I'm Rick James, bitch, so how are they going to hear about the Appalachian Trail? I mean, now, over in the corner there, you have an amazing array of things plugged in.
Probably too much weight.
And, well, no, I mean, it's definitely different. And we had someone, he's hiking right now, and he had asked a question right before he left. He was wondering if we could talk about electronics, and for me, I was completely obsolete. I mean, I had a cassette player on the trail, and Puss, she just had like a flip phone. She didn't have a smartphone then, and at the time, the only real smartphone that, there were other things out there, but like the iPhone was only on one service provider, which did not give good service.
Yeah,
and so, things have changed. So what do you see people have out there? Like, is pretty much everybody have an iPhone or something like that?
Pretty much everyone has a smartphone. Yeah, definitely. Quite a lot of iPhones. And then I haven't seen many people with like charge packs. I've seen one or two other guys with like solar panels attached to their backs. And I've got kind of like a pretty hefty battery pack which holds about 5 charges and a solar panel, so just so I can definitely have a charge on my phone to keep in contact, kind of, because I'm like that further away from home. I guess it's sort of like a kind of like a connection that I want to keep, and also my family back home wanted me to keep. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah.
How often do you turn on your phone a day?
I started off kind of like literally just turn it on in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Just to see if there was, for one, any emergencies back home, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And also in kind of like through the night, I just kind of, for some reason, I felt it more comfortable knowing what time it was throughout the night. I don't know why. But I've found that kind of if you stick it on like airplane mode, it lasts pretty well, and it's easier just to have it in my pocket in airplane mode, so I can take it out to take a quick shot. On my phone. So I've got another camera as well to take kind of like better quality pictures of kind of like the landscape, to kind of like keep that. And but I feel the iPhone's just like better for taking quick shots of people, because I want to kind of like take loads of photos of the people I meet along the way, so I don't forget. forget them, because I'm bound to forget their names, because as I've said, I'm terrible with names. So
Yeah.
as long as I have pictures of the people I meet, there'll be nice memories.
Now, do you have you like traded phone numbers with people, with other thru hikers, so you guys can keep up with one another while you're out there? And
Yeah, a few people. We've kind of like, because I've been hiking with a group of I don't know, about 12 people, but kind of like on and off kind of since we started. But yeah, I've traded like a few phone numbers already, which is good. Kind of like just to see kind of like if we get kind of like sidetracked kind of like in our own kind of schedule, we can perhaps meet up along the way, or see where we are, see if we bump into each other again. But yeah,
that would be a really cool way to go about it. Then I started thinking, I know I'd give it to somebody that later on I regretted.
Right.
There's going to be that guy where you're like, oh God, Frenchie, text me again. Sorry, that was a real guy that's who I think of. He was a really nice guy, but I could think like, Frenchie would have my phone number. I'll probably have to edit that out. Yeah.
I think it's definitely very instant now. Kind of like people can send a picture straight to whatever kind of like social networking they're into, and it'll be there that the minute you do it, I guess. Whereas, like you say, back when you did it, there wasn't anything like that.
No.
So it's kind of like you kind of waited until you got into town, if that, kind of like, or when you got home, you'd kind of like write something about it online.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And have you seen any spots out there, like the little?
Yeah. I've seen some attached to people's packs.
Yeah.
I looked into it briefly just to kind of like keep mainly my mum kind of like at ease.
And then you're like, oh shit, I got a cell phone.
Yeah.
That's the way I kind of look at it.
It's kind of like if there's anything that bad, then I could just make a call.
Yeah, make a call, and they know where you are.
Yeah.
If it's on, and that kind of thing. Yeah, I guess I can see the value in the spot just sending out. It's more for the emergency issue.
Yeah, I've heard like some people on Facebook kind of like their parents won't let them go unless they have a spot. And this is like Americans that kind of like have easy contact with their mobile phones, I guess.
Yeah.
I suppose kind of like there is some lax service in certain parts.
Yeah.
That kind of overrides that. But yeah, I don't know.
Is yours through Virgin or?
No, it's like it's Vodafone back home.
Okay.
And it kind of just attaches to like T-Mobile or AT&T.
Okay, yeah.
And automatically. Yeah, because we have T-Mobile back home, so I don't know whether it's the same company or not.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Do you guys have the hot chick on the motorcycle riding around in your commercials for T-Mobile?
No.
That's like the only thing she's known for here. It's like, the team. Like I've actually heard I've heard a couple of podcasts reference, like when they're talking about a hot chick, they're like, oh, like the T-Mobile girl. It's like a really bad Anne Hathaway takeoff, but still good at the same time. She has all her hair, not like Les Mis. Oh, at that point in time, that's when Puss would have looked at me and said something like, "Shut up." Let's see. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I guess how do you see thru hikers now compared to when you hiked? Again, pretty broad, but
yeah. I think we talked about this earlier, like when we were having dinner, about how I just think this really isn't a difference thing, but I don't want to say narcissistic, but thru hikers just kind of have to be generally selfish. Like you can be selfless and be friendly, but when it comes time to, like we were talking about, I know what we were talking about, because I felt like a jerk because I was kind of like, like you're the first person to come to our house, and my wife's not a thru hiker, but she has done a lot of hiking, but it's kind of like I trust some hikers and that kind of thing, but it was kind of like my situation was, I was like, hey, don't let too many people know that you're going to get a ride. and you said you kind of kept it to yourself, but other people really weren't concerned with it. And then my comment was, well, they will be later.
Yeah, right.
Give it a few months and let the pack thin out a little bit, and there will become a time when it's just like, And then I gave you instantly 3 instances of people who hung on with us for 2 more days because they knew we were getting rides.
Yeah.
And they went to say, they kind of like, yeah, we can cut it short today, or yeah, we'll go a little bit further today. And just because they knew they wouldn't. And I think it's just because that's one less thing you have to think about.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that ride's taken care of. I know I have to get into blah, 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 and I have to get into Front Royal or whatever the hell it is. It's like, it's just going to be a lot easier if I have a ride waiting for me. So I think there's that. And so I mean, I'm not really answering your question, but I think in general, thru hikers are inherently selfish. But I mean that in the nicest way.
No, yeah,
I don't mean it like they're
I
jerks.
understand that, yeah.
Because it is a bit of survival.
Yep.
Even though you could, make a phone call or something like that. I think we talked about this earlier. I think that the only other thing that I see, and again, I don't know if this is a difference thing, but is the gear thing, is the magic pill of gear.
Yeah.
It's like, like Americans want to take the magic pill to lose weight or to do whatever. They don't want to listen to their doctor, and they say, look, if you just eat a little bit better and exercise, it's like, no, I need to have the pill. For whatever it is. And I think that gear is the pill. And there's so much gear porn out there now. We've been asked why we don't talk about gear more. And it's very personal. It's kind of like, well, this is what I have. This is the money I had that I could afford for this gigantic ass trip.
That's it, yeah.
I'm going to make some mistakes along the way, but I think that now the analyzing of gear is one thing that I just
huge.
It's huge. I mean, yeah.
Everyone has an opinion.
Yeah, we probably would be a lot more popular if we we gave gear reviews, but it's just such a personal thing, and
yeah, I don't know. To be honest, that's what I found so refreshing about the Pox and Puss podcast was that you didn't go on so much about.
I'll give you your $10 later.
So it was, just more about kind of like what happens on trail, which is, to be honest, to me, is more interesting than someone else's opinion on another piece of gear.
Exactly, like we were talking earlier. It's like we don't really talk about the trail that much. We talk about the experience and the people that we had while we were out there.
Yeah.
But and also, Puss she's a little more inclined to talk about gear, but for me, I sold it for too many years, and it's a smoke show. But yeah, so I just gear, meh. It's like the trail show. What is it? More
beer,
less gear. Of which we are this month, the month of April, we are finally going to be their beer provider of the month. So. The only thing that I like so far about this show, not having Puss here for, is that every time I've said my wife, she hasn't followed up with the Borat, my wife, which she constantly makes fun of me for.
My wife.
Yeah, my wife. Anyway, let's see. You have anything else? We did a pretty good job. It's an hour and 52 minutes, of which there were a few minutes of peeing and bullshitting. But for an hour long show, that should be fine. That's more than enough that I need to edit.
Right.
But well, cool. Anything else?
I don't think so.
No. All right. You're gonna use dental floss as sewing.
Yeah.
For the first time ever, huh?
Yeah. I heard about it. Little tip.
Yeah.
I'll give it a go on trail.
In the pair of Solomon. So.
Yep.
Well, cool. Well, follow us on Facebook. Just go to Facebook and look for Pox and Puss. We're probably the only ones there. Find us on Twitter at Pox and Puss. You can follow me at Pox Holiday. You can follow Puss in Boots. You can follow her at AT Puss in Boots. And your Twitter handle?
At Thru-Hiker 2013.
And give us that website for the donations one more time.
virginmoneygiving.com/Thru-Hiker.
And we'll put that on our Twitter account tomorrow or the next couple of days.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, no problem. It's going to bring you millions, trust me. With all 175 followers, don't worry. We literally have dozens of people that listen to us. But yeah. But, well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. It's been great.
And tomorrow I'm going to take you to a place called Bojangles
Sounds good.
for chicken and biscuits.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, oh yeah, you can find us on Instagram too at Pox and Puss. All right. Bye. My name is Pox Holiday, and sitting to my right is...
Puss in Boots.